with the recent balance patch, that was pretty small, we did have a few changes, and the Barbaric Kings were changed for Water, Wind and Light to have Wrath attack for a absorb on the enemy. Well, technically not really absorb. It is a decrease on the enemy and a boost up on your side, but it's not necessarily an absorb, whereas an absorb would only work if you have ATB actually being decreased, so you first have to land it, then you also boost up your attack bar. But he works slightly different. So in this case, you will always gain 50% attack bar, and if you have Berserk, then you also decrease. So it makes him a little bit better for just bruiser fights. Plus, of course, he always has this skill, which is just, well, wall of text. But in short, we have attack buff and speed buff for the whole team. Then we have Berserk. We take more damage because defense decreases, but we also gain more speed, and we have a little bit of HP recovery for the damage that is dealt. Plus, we have a leader skill of 33 lead for guild content. So he's actually a pretty good setup unit for nuker teams, because you can place 2 nukers next to him and then have a pretty strong hit from this itself. And currently in meta, there's a lot of nukers out there. Plus then, let's say that there's a 2 against 3 or a 1 against 3. He has a very good cleanup potential because of that skill 2 being buffed. I would be honestly saying that, sure, he would have been good even without that buff already doing that, but it did share a little bit of light on it, saying like, okay, he might be pretty good. So one of those buffed units is the Wind Barbaric King, known as Hraesvelg. Let's ask Google how that is pronounced. Funny enough, Google even says it's misspelled. And it wants to translate it from English. That's weird. I kind of expected like a Nordic language or something like that.
Hraesvelg.
Would have never guessed that. I was kind of called Hraesvelg. Well, the R is not there in...
Hraesvelg.
Hraesvelg.
I like that one a lot better.
Hraesvelg. Hraesvelg.
The what?
Hraesvelg.
Obama is a weird-ass language. Well, not that my language is really that great, but let's try mine.
Hraesvelg.
It's even worse. It's even worse. It's not how you pronounce that in Dutch, I would say. We don't even have the A with dots in our language.
Hraesvelg.
That sounds more something like we would say in Dutch. But it does actually sound like this.
Grasveld.
But that is lawn in English. Probably not the unit, but then again, enough sidetracking. Let's go into the siege video. Yo, what's up, guys? It's been a little while since I've done a siege video, so I was like, well, why not do it right now? Because we're playing Aftermath Legends, which is currently the rank 1 in Europe, and against Smash Bros. So a little bit more of interesting targets out there. I was trying to think about more units from the balance patch, trying to add those in. But let's see how far I went on those. But of course, we gotta start off with those kind of hits. Also a team that I've been using pretty much every siege. Yeah, there's still like a decent amount of Claras or a Dark Series where you can use this kind of team. And you only need one pay-to-win-ish unit, whatever you want to call that Hey Gang thing in the middle. If I would get a second Hey Gang, I will probably keep it. It's one of those few units that I would be like, yeah, I can totally keep that, because I would have to make a second Riley, which I kind of hate. I don't like fusing, but I do already have that second Theomars, and it's just such a good team in general. If you're wondering about the runes, I do have a separate video where I showcase all of the runes of all of the units pretty much. I will link that down in the description below as well. But I can say for that Thessarion, it's mainly focused on speed, crit rate, and HP. And then just dealing damage from artifacts, and then it still does a decent amount of damage. Like, you don't need to go that high on damage on it. And the Hey Gang and the Riley, of course, are very tanky, respectively, because... well, it's just any fire unit will always be hitting the Riley, any wind unit, mainly the Byuncho, which is still somewhat meta. It's kind of drifting slightly out of meta since the last nerf of the balance patch 2 months ago, but it is still mainly in there that people haven't really found a good replacement for you. Then a hit I always like to do on the Doomon, which is putting in an Acroma. It's literally just Acroma +2. In this case, I was like, it makes most sense to have the Bale and the Camilla next to it. I think his whole team was 100 rest, because I was not landing much of my things at all. It would be a little bit dangerous if the Belial gets very low HP and therefore the Doomon starts hitting the Belial as well, as you just saw in the previous hit. But I was like, okay, it should die in the next one, so I wanted to do the freeze over there, but it didn't work out as well. But if it would have procced over here, it might have went for the third skill, and then it could have been pretty bad for me. So luckily, it didn't do that. But yeah, I do think that this whole team is 100 rest, because my units are not necessarily super high on accuracy, but they're, I guess, would be like around like 20-ish, and they weren't landing jack shite, which can happen if it's 100 rest, and that definitely does make a lot of sense on that part. But yeah, it has to be 100 res, otherwise these odds are like incredibly low. So yeah, and then the Belial comes back, Madness Judgment, killing those things off. It's also one of those teams like the Belial and the Camilla. You can build a lot of Belial Camillas and have very good use cases of those. If you really care about Siege, and let's say you can choose a net 5 somewhere, or you go for Summoning Stone rotation or Scam Scrolls. Well, we used to call them Scam Stones, now we also have Scam Scrolls. Those are known as SWC Scrolls. But if you're not caring about any of the new units, you could put those in as like Scam Chances to get, or not get, or something like that. That doesn't matter. Well, either how, Belial, Camilla, pretty good units. You can use them multiple times and it definitely will not disappoint you most of the time though. Once again, if you're curious about the runes are in that separate video. It's in the link down below. And yeah, more additional turns for the kill. And then more resistance. Then the next hit, I did not know that this was full will, or full non-will actually. But I had in mind like, okay, I can do that skill too if I do have to strip in the first place. Plus, I made it not that fast and was kind of expecting to outslow it. Or move second, whatever you want to call it, turn to it. But that didn't happen in the end, so did get a stun over there, did get the additional turn on that thing, but every time that I have debuffs, I just will heal a lot. So that was the main thing. The Seimei is not on the highest of, what's it called, resistance over here, so I was hoping that one to get armor break and everything else, not really. But in the end, did not really work out, but everything's kind of like super dead-ish already, so shouldn't be that bad, right? Well, that Chandra had a little bit to say about that with that defense over there, but if we land more dots, did actually not manage, did we land a lot of dots? Well, not enough dots. We did get that armor break over there on the unit that is 100 res. It's a little bit unfortunate. And it did go for the kill over there, and then the additional turn, and then it's very low on HP, but Seimei could ult heal of 26k for 4 debuffs. That's just a lot going in, and we have another third skill coming in from the Bludja. One of the most interesting names in this game, like that's for sure. And in the end, it did work. Not the safest of hits though. And then a pretty interesting defense. I'm not really sure if it's necessarily good or bad. It does have a few passives in there, but then again, this is the passive killer. And there's no Julian that's going to be 40k HP. If you have a Julian that's 40k HP running in a team like this, well then good for you. That is the thing. But I mainly focused for dealing damage on the, what's that called? Kraka. But yeah, 72k easily enough. That's also a thing, like, we have been asking, or at least I have been asking, and probably every Ian owner or Light Ezio owner out there has been asking for Crit Awakening for Light Ezio. I would say for that second hit, it's almost never needed. For that first hit, it could be nice. But then again, this is also for a lot of the units that I use for my cleaves. I put second set to or third set to. Those are all presets. Ian always has my absolute best runes, otherwise he's not going to deal the damage. Then a hit on a Uldong team could be a little bit dangerous if it was a Leo trap, but I didn't expect that much damage from it in the first place. I've also never really seen like a good Uldong team in the first place. It was pretty high on attack, that's what's it called? That's a Savannah thingy, because otherwise there's no way you would armor break that. But then without the armor break and a defense buff, he again pretty much does no damage at all. So yeah, that's kind of the part for that. That just didn't really work out. But yeah, Uldong, interesting to see Uldong on defense. This is probably the first Uldong I've seen on defense ever. It's definitely, maybe has some potential here and there. It's definitely one of those things where you could say, okay, I can build a crit rate Savannah, and you don't have to care about the crit damage, and then the crit damage is covered by the Uldong in the first place. But if this was really the best way to do it, I'm not entirely sure. It could have been maybe a little bit bad if he went for an armor break into an additional turn and then deal a lot of damage, but would have really done that much damage? Maybe, I'm not sure. Then my good old Maxi hit, which actually messed up a few times on stream. I was running Maxi in my Steel Fortress team, and therefore my Maxi had like 0 speed. So my Chungpong was moving in front of the Maxi, and that is bad news. That's not something you want to work with. Well, in this case, we did have pretty high HP still on that Björncho. I didn't really super optimize the Maxi. Normally I have it as a preset and know exactly where it's good at, but in this case, I do want to keep it this pair, but it was not the most crazy of sets out there, but it did work out. Next hit is the Hraesvelg, or whatever this guy's name is. It is recently buffed for the S2 to also give a attack bar absorb rather than just an attack bar up. So I think it is a bit of both worlds. So you even got the up even if you don't absorb, which is pretty good. It makes him a little bit more of a unit where he is a bruiser. So here he gets like 50 up and then also absorbs, which is decent, I guess. You can use this next to a lot of things like Water Series, Sonia's, all kinds of stuff. And I actually didn't use it here, but it has 33 attack lead in guild battle. So actually an interesting unit right now. Well, to be honest, it was already an interesting unit before that buff. That buff didn't really change that much, rather than just put a little bit more of spotlight onto him. It's like, okay, 1 against 4, he will do a little bit better because of that absorb. Or 1 against 3, where the hell is that 4th coming from in Siege? I don't know. It's just, it's being picked up over there. You just have to deal with it. So it's there by the mind and the soul of something. Or there's a nana stack. Then there's 4. You just deal with it. Either, well, simple hit on this one. I didn't really expect that much damage from anything on here. Interesting way to use the Light Ivor. This is more of like a Siege, or well, like an RTA team trying to be a Siege. They identified as a Siege unit. Well, it's not really a Siege unit unless it's actually outspeeding something and then countering something else. I would only say that the Light Ivor is mainly good next to a Sylvia, otherwise I'm not too sure about it. We have, I think, 1 or 2 on defense, but not sure if they're performing that well without a Sylvia. Like the ones with Sylvia, of course, very good skill 1 armor break setup. But otherwise, it's kind of a unit trying to identify as a Siege unit where it's not really that much of a Siege unit, I guess. It could give the RNG-ish, but the big issue is it was still focused on Dark Element, so it's not going to be an AoE random armor break or anything like that. But yeah, something like that. And then the final hit of today. Actually, I was thinking that I should make a second Hraesvelg for this, because I used the pure vanilla cookie over here, but it actually had no value over here, like absolutely none. Because if I had the Hraesvelg over here, I had 33 attack lead and pretty much the exact same things. Except for that immunity over there, which did help out a little bit. I was contemplating what to hit first, if I should hit the Destiny first or I should hit the Bayek first. But in the end, I did rune up to do extra damage on the Bayek, but I went for killing the Destiny first. And the idea behind that was Sonia is probably not gonna die to it due to the speed buff. And with that speed buff, I can just simply clean that up. Whereas if a Destiny starts, let's say it went for a skill 2, killed 1 unit, went for skill 3 on the proc, and then killed, let's say that both of the Siri and the Sonia would die to procs from the Destiny. It's kind of unlikely, but it is probable to happen-ish, something like that. But yeah, then it could be pretty bad. But this is definitely one of those teams which would actually be a lot better if you put a Hraesvelg also in this slot and then you put it as lead, because then you have the 33 lead. And there's a lot of teams you can actually kill with this. Plus, Björnjo is currently nerfed, so with the nerf of Björnjo, it is possible to kill with a Sonya. However, you have to be careful on that one. If they go a lot of minus wind, you might still die, but if you go for a crit damage Sonya, you could actually kill Björnjo. So maybe a thing or two where you can use Hraesvelg and maybe even pick up multiple Hraesvelg, because I'm literally thinking about making multiple of them, because I do have the Siri plus the Sonya, but I have a second Sonya as well. Plus, I can use that with the Odin team and the Kiara team, which I did use before with just a Lima, but with a Lima you only kill 1, whereas with the Hraesvelg in there you kill 2. You can also do that exact same team, but then you put Hraesvelg in lead and you make it with a Federica and a Odin, rather than with the Kiara. Kiara you of course have the speed lead, but 33 attack lead is fine as well, as long as you just outspeed. So yeah, there's a lot of options with Hraesvelg out there, which is actually pretty interesting for offense hit. So currently I just have 1. I would have definitely used 2 because it was actually a better in slot than it was on the pure vanilla cookie over here. But yeah, gonna use more of those. Also for that case, if I had the Hraesvelg in here, I would have killed the Bayek second, leave the Destiny alive, and then the Hraesvelg would have been good to kill the Destiny as well. And the Destiny killing all 3 units would have been very low odds. And now the Hraesvelg with the pushback and the push-up, plus it has decent damage by itself from the kit, would do a lot of damage over here. So Hraesvelg, pretty nice unit for Siege, I would say. Even though it was a very small balance patch, and we all know that, and we all hate that, still trying to fight the little small things that might help you out a little bit, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video, and see you as always in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.